Hey, it's Jason again here at Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Well, I'm trying something new in my business. I thought I might take you along for the ride here. I want to explain first that the way I've done business up to this point, I'm a little backyard nursery out of Mission, BC here. And what I've done is I take cuttings of roses and other plants, I do them by seed and so on, and when I've produced them to sellable size, I bring them to local selling events normally. I'm considering the option of selling them online and shipping them across the country here in Canada. So I'm going to go through quickly some of the considerations that I've made in making that decision and some of the challenges I'm facing along the way so that you can decide whether this is something that's right for you. So maybe I'll start with the fact that shipping rates in Canada are very unfavorable. If you were to be shipping plants in the United States or shipping anything in the United States for that matter, you get the benefit of much, much lower postal rates. Here in Canada, for some reason or another, they're 2 to 3 times as high. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because the main shipping entity in Canada is owned by the government. Some people say that it's because we have a big country and a small population, but I don't know if that works for me. Vancouver's a pretty big population, so is Toronto, and the shipping rates between those two cities are not anywhere near reasonable. So it's a mystery, but we do have that disadvantage. And where that factors into shipping plants is that if you were shipping bare root roses, like some of the guys back east do, or if you're shipping big plants in pots like this, the prices become excessive to the point where your customer wouldn't pay those prices or shouldn't be asked to anyway. So I've been running my business locally here, and the way I normally do it is I take cuttings of a plant and grow them up to this size here. The next year, I pot them up into a gallon-sized pot and bring them to the farmer's market. I put a fancy tag like that on it, and then I sell it directly, right there on the spot. That's been my distribution system. There's some advantages and disadvantages of that. One of the advantages is that you get direct customer feedback. Like, people see your plants, they'll buy them on the spot or not. They'll even tell you why they don't want to buy them. So from my point of view, it's been really valuable in collecting customer feedback about what customers want what roses, what customers want what plants, and learning how my business should run. The disadvantage, or the primary disadvantage, is that there's a lot of running around. Basically, every weekend all the way through spring, I load up my van, I go to a local farmer's market or a selling event for plants, and I plan to bring a full van load, and I come back usually from that event with half of what I brought or half of what I took with me, because by necessity I have to guess and hope and wish and pray that those plants will sell at the farmer's market without knowing what the customers actually want. I do get the benefit, I have to admit, of some amount of pre-sales through my website or from Instagram or other ways that I advertise, or even through Craigslist, but I still come home with a lot of plants, and it is a lot of hassle. The other thing is that I, by necessity again, limit my customers to what's local. So I do a lot of collector roses. I do roses that are hard to find, things that are, that people might be seeking after in the industry or in the hobby, but I'm limiting myself to those people who are quite local in figuring out what they want to buy. So to that degree, I'm way better off choosing a plant that doesn't have specialty appeal but has wide appeal, so that the people at the farmer's market, I have the best chance of selling through. But that's not the way I roll in terms of what plants I collect and propagate. So I'd like to have the advantage of a wider audience or a wider potential customer base across the country to sell through to. So this year now I'm considering doing, and I'm setting up for it right now, is an online store attached to my website. Normally I just use our website for a few blog postings, and I put on there what events that will be appearing at that year. But now across the top of the screen, I've placed an online store. I've done that using WordPress, is the piece of software that I've used to set up my website initially, and I've added on WooCommerce, which is a free piece of software that allows me to set up an online store. And I want to show you how it goes to set that up here. So I'm going to actually start recording on my screen here, and we'll see if I can show you what this looks like. Okay, so on the screen here, if I've done this right, you're going to see my WooCommerce screen here. I'm setting up items for sale for shipping. And this one here is the rose Sophie's Perpetual. Now, Sophie's Perpetual is an excellent rose. I actually do well with it locally even, but it's exceptional in that it's like a china, but it smells like a damask. So it has the flowers, it has the graceful habit of a china, the smooth stems. It kind of wanders around laxly and quite low, but the flowers have that punchy fragrance of a damask, and they start out light pink with a darker outside ring, and then they darken as they age, which is a really neat feature of a rose. So Sophie's Perpetual here, I've put it in and I've priced it at $15, and I've put it in stock with 8 of them, and then I just hit publish. And so what I've done is all the way through here, I've chosen all of the roses. I've got Buff Beauty, I've got Betty Will, I've got Baron Gerard de Laine, which I mentioned in my Hybrid Perpetuals video. So I've got all of these listed here, and once I've published them, then they show up in the online store. So I'm just going to click through to my site here and show you how the online store shows up. Now, part of the consideration for doing this, and I'll do an aside here, is that I want to keep the shipping expenses relatively low. So I'm actually choosing to sell in this size here. This is my 9-centimeter pot. Normally, as I say, I would pot this up into a gallon size at the beginning of my season. It would grow into the pot, and then it would be ready for sale at the farmer's market. To save on shipping expenses, I'm going to take my own root roses, grown to the point where they are rooted nicely to the bottom of the pot, and I'm going to ship those directly to the customer, which means they are going to get a smaller rose, but they have the advantage of having a rose that's on its own roots, that they might not be able to find elsewhere, and that the shipping costs may be a bit lower than if they bought something in a big honkin' pot like this. So I want to show you on my site here the online store. And I just click shop across the top there, and assuming that it will load here, there we go. Bad internet spot in the house. I have a listing of all of my roses here. Now, a word quickly on some of the pictures that I've used here, because if you're setting up an online store, one thing you have to have is pictures. Now, some of these pictures are pictures that I've taken myself in my garden. Other ones I had to glean from the internet. And what I try to do when I'm taking pictures to use online is I try to pick pictures that are Creative Commons licensed or licensed for sharing. And a big thank you to people who do that. It's very public-minded of you to share your pictures so that people like me can use those, or people can use. I use it in my videos a lot, so it's a great way to go about it. And as you click through to the item itself, like for instance here, I've got Rosa Fiona Stanley, or I guess sometimes they might call that the trade name Abea de Cluny. And on the big picture here, I give credit to the author or photographer and thank them, and put on a link to the Creative Commons license, which I've used on that. So that's as easy as it is. Now, the next question becomes, how do I actually ship these? And what policies do I set up for people to buy these? And I've decided to do a couple of things to make it easy for myself. One, I've made a limited selling season. So I am only selling these in the month of March through to the beginning of April, and then I'm shipping them all in April 15th, which means that I won't have to try to run a shipping business at the same time as I'm running my local business, going to all the garden events that I go to during the year. So that's one thing I've done to make it easier for myself. The second thing I've done is I've basically chosen a box size that is well suited for shipping 4 plants. So the people who buy it will actually get their best deal if they buy them in groups of 4, because that's the size of box that I've chosen it for. And of course, if they choose 8, then we'll ship it that way too. And I have some experience to figure out on how how to pack that and how to work that out. So I'll be working on that as we hit the shipping date. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that in that WooCommerce app here that I mentioned, there's an extension that you can buy, or an add-on, that allows you to get the Canada Post rates directly. And that's what I've done. So that one actually, the software that I've used to set up my site here is WordPress is free, aside from the hosting that I have to pay for. WooCommerce is free, but the Canada Post extension that I have to use so that I can get the exact shipping rates for my customers, that I have to pay extra for. So I paid something like $80 US to get that extension added to my software, so that if a person wants to figure out how much they're paying for shipping right away, that they can do so. All right, I hope I've covered off the basics around my consideration of doing mail order and selling online. Let me know what you think of this change in my business, and if you have any questions. Thanks.